Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Wednesday morning. Game one of the NBA Finals tonight. Game one of the Stanley Cup Final last night, a thriller. You just never know in sports. You got two teams that have ridden outstanding defense and goaltending in the Stanley Cup Final. So, of course, we end up with a 5-4 game. I mean, logically, why wouldn't we, right? Vegas wins 5-4 after giving up 2 goals right out of the gate and digging a big early hole. They storm back and win. In the final 5 minutes, it was just back and forth. It was outstanding. Carolina tied it up with about 8 minutes ago, I guess about 4 minutes ago, when Vegas scored to win the game 5-4. And the thing is, like, Vegas played multiple 5-4 games actually with the Mammoth in the first round. But getting the second round, first with Anaheim, then the conference final with Colorado, in 10 games, they gave up 20 goals. They were giving up 2 goals a game. They were not letting teams light the lamp. 2 goals a game just isn't going to win much. And it didn't win much. They went 8-2 in those 10 games. And then they roll in to play a Carolina team that was even hotter, 12-1. And they were giving up about a goal and a half a game. So naturally, it's 2-1 after one period. 3-3. 5-4, just unreal. I can't explain it. Now, it wasn't all bad defense. A lot of it was, where do you lose the puck? And there were a couple egregious giveaways in really bad spots. But there are also some bad defending. You can't let people post up in front of the goal. You got to put a body on them. Got to shove them out of the way. Got to hit them. Got to bang on them. Can't let them get comfortable. So there was some ridiculous stuff going on. But, you know, the cross-ice passes, just begging to get picked off. Just begging. I mean, dump the puck in a corner and go get it. Do something safe. Ridiculous. So Vegas made some mistakes, but so did Carolina, and Vegas survives and wins. So now we'll see how this goes when they get to game 2. But first, they're off tonight, and we've got the NBA Finals game 1. Spurs, Knicks, who are you rooting for? I mean, it is hard to root for a New York team, but San Antonio's won so much, there's a fair amount of jealousy. I suppose you root for the small market team. Maybe you root for the West because you're in the West. New York just, you know, people get tired of hearing about New York, the national media being a bunch of homers and everyone going nuts. I think there is an argument to be made that the sooner San Antonio excels and the bigger everyone has to be paid, the more likely they are to have to break it up a little bit. So, you know, and the funny thing is, I mean, Wembanyama's awesome, and he's going to have an awesome career, but he's got to have a team around him. You want to go all the way back to Wilt Chamberlain, didn't have a team around him. Only won twice. Only twice. But considering the stats he put up. And I just wonder with Wembanyama, you know, will it be a little bit like the Joker? The Joker's awesome. Everybody thinks the Joker is awesome, but doesn't have a good enough team around him. You know, there were years where they just could not compete when they went to the bench. They just got obliterated. You got to have that deep roster. So maybe there's something to San Antonio. I mean, a bunch of guys there are going to get paid, but, you know, if they win bigger, get paid bigger, people get a little more aggressive coming for their guys in free agency or restricted free agency. The combination of injuries and the second apron acting like a really firm, just a hard salary cap like the NFL has, that second apron wears people out and makes them move guys. So maybe that will help not only the Jazz, but the entire West. You know, we'll see if that team gets broken up because of money. So I think that's something to watch tonight. It'll be interesting to see what Cat does. He is he's quite the X factor here. If Wembanyama has to go guard him, that pulls him a long way away from the hoop. You got to respect Cat on the three-point line. So I think Karl-Anthony Towns' ability to hit a couple early shots so that Wembanyama's got to stay out there, I think that's a big thing to watch tonight. We'll see how that plays out. And then we got some other news. Got some football news. You know, the analysis, all the breakdowns of these moves, the big trades happening. And I think that for starters, I love the Rams going for it. I don't know if it'll work or not, but go for it and give us a story. And they did. And that welcome press conference, now everyone's tracking down Aaron Donald. Well, would you come back? He says, if I can find the fire. I mean, he's been out a while now. And if you can't find the fire, what are you doing? Now, assuming you could get peak Aaron Donald, that would be awesome, but he's going to want to be paid. And then what does that do to the rest of the roster? To me, this feels like people want to know and, do your job if you're covering the Rams or the NFL and go get a quote from him. But the likelihood just doesn't seem likely to me. Nor do I know that the Rams need it. I think they've got to be the favorite now. Certainly Seattle's the champ and San Francisco is right there. I do wonder, man, the Niners are older and they seem injury prone. A little bit of a fall there. Philadelphia, got to do it without A.J. Brown. Maybe it'll be a little addition by subtraction. I suppose if you're an Eagles fan, you got to help that. Will the Bears take another step forward? Now they have a tougher schedule now. Don't get to play a fourth place schedule. Got to play a first place schedule. And that division's pretty tough. Although the NFC West is also. So it's, there's definitely some compelling storylines. I mean, Seattle was riding a third place schedule, and now they get a first place schedule. So there's definitely stuff to watch there. I think what the Patriots did has got to be applauded. They couldn't run it back. Teams that lose the Super Bowl, there tends to be a hangover, especially if you're losing with a younger quarterback who's never been there before. I mean, if you lose with Brady, you can bounce back. If you lose with Manning, you can bounce back. But it's hard otherwise. It's hard for quarterbacks to make it to multiple Super Bowls. So, if you lose one, can you get back? And the answer for a lot of guys is no. So I think doing something to make the game easier, give them a little extra juice. Before A.J. Brown was in Philly, he was in Tennessee, and of course Vrabel was in Tennessee. I expect it's going to end poorly in New England in 3 years. They're going to have to move him. But if you get 1 or 2 big years out of him first, maybe it's worth it. I think Denver has something to prove. That was pretty disappointing for the Broncos to get all the way to the AFC title game, not have their quarterback, and still be very competitive and nearly win the game and go to the Super Bowl. So keeping Bo Nix healthy, I think Denver is the lead dog and the big dog. Maybe Buffalo, maybe the Chargers. PK likes the Ravens. I can see the Ravens getting to the playoffs, but it seems like they're headed the wrong way. Again, key guys getting older, including the quarterback, not as athletically dominant as he was early on. And so it's I just don't know that. And they've never been a good playoff team. Now Harbaugh's gone. I got new leadership. Maybe that'll change things. I'm not big on, okay, we're going to change. We can't change 50 players, so we'll change one coach. But it did just work for Vegas and the Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup final, and it is working for the Knicks. So, hey, who's to say? Maybe. I actually think Harbaugh, that's a pretty compelling story with the Giants. They get a fourth-place schedule. They'll have Scadaboo presumably healthy all year. He obviously got hurt last year. They're not playing a rookie quarterback now. They're playing a second-year guy in Jackson Dart. So that should help. And we have seen teams like that take a big jump. I'm not sure what Washington's doing. They had a big year, then they had injuries and they had a down year. Where are they going to be? Dallas always gets a ton of hype, but I don't know. Dallas, it kind of looks like 10-7 there. It'll be interesting. I'm interested to see how much progress the Giants make. It's been a bit chaotic there, and for quite a while now. And Harbaugh coming in, I've said this a couple times before. His brother did it with the Chargers in a chaotic situation, and they've been better. And the Broncos, definitely same thing. Bring in an experienced coach, been a little chaotic there, find a quarterback, and suddenly everybody's marching in the same direction, and they're a playoff team 2 years in a row. And, the 1 seed in the AFC, bad luck with the quarterback health, but I think bringing in that experienced coach, and if you want to go back a few years, it's what Kansas City did with Andy Reid. Now they look awesome, and people talk about a dynasty, but look at all the playoff wins Kansas City had in the previous 30 years. Yeah, not good. Not good. And really, if you want to go back 50, they had a nice little run just a couple years Montana was there. But the Chiefs' postseason history was not good. They won like the 4th Super Bowl, and then they got pretty lean. So and now they're on a great run. So I think that keep an eye on Harbaugh and the Giants. All right, and then the baseball. I don't know if you saw Joe Adell Anaheim. The Angels, old school. I'm probably going to say California Angels next. The Angels playing the Rockies, and a fly ball to right center, and Adele's racing into the gap and hits his glove, hits his head, and goes over the fence. Yeah, I know. You think you've seen that before. Jose Canseco. Yes. And there's video out there that was recirculating again last night. 5 or 6 years ago in Texas, it was during the pandemic because there were no fans in the stands. They had like cardboard cutouts. A ball hit his glove and shot over the wall. Did not hit his head, but it did hit his glove, and it was not getting out. If he had just let it drop, it would have been, an extra base hit. But it went off his glove and over the wall. Now, also earlier this year, he made a game with, I think it was 3 just dramatic catches, just pulling one home run after another back in the ballpark. So, it's baseball. Stuff happens, and that happened. It was a blowout. I guess it's not like it was a one-run game, right? The Rockies ended up winning 8-2. So it's still embarrassing, though. It's pretty goofy looking. So, but I guess it is what it is, and you're an accomplished major leaguer. You just roll with it. Why not? Just keep going. What else are you going to do, right? So there you go. A little bit of baseball news. I was super disappointed in my Padres. Beaten by the Phillies, who swept them in San Diego. Now a week later in Philly, it's starting out poorly. Don't like it. Did like what baseball did yesterday with Lou Gehrig Day. I think it's the 6th year they've done that. The Jackie Robinson, that's – I'm trying to think now. I've been – honoring Jackie for 25, maybe 30 years. I might be off. Getting bad with time. But doing a great job, baseball. Recognize your history, Tell the stories. These are incredible stories. So, hey, why not? The bad news for the Yankees that Aaron Judge has to see a specialist for a bone bruise. Well, that's not good. It's near his shoulder. So, bad news, but what are you going to do? All right, DJ and PK, got to take a break here. That's some of what's going on in sports. We got Game 1 of the NBA Finals tonight. Definitely looking forward to that. Coming up next, Steve Cleveland on the NBA Finals. We'll talk with him next. Stay with us. DJ PK and Steve Cleveland is checking in, a former BYU basketball coach, former Fresno State coach. Steve, good morning.
Good morning, fellas.
It's the New York Knickerbockers and the San Antonio Spurs. Steve, what do you expect? What do you think? Give us some genius. What do you got?
It's interesting because the Knicks right now are going to do something. If they can win here and get where they need to be, everything is historically dominant. It's a playoff winning streak, 11-game winning streak. Sweeping both the Sixers, though the Sixers didn't have everyone there, and the Cavs. But they do bring a really deep front court, and they have size. And we'll have to see. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, along with Mitch Robinson. You know what? There are good things there. And I think we're kind of looking at it more of a Wemby era right now. Defensive Player of the Year, kind of carried the Spurs and had a grueling 7-game series against OKC, the defending NBA champs. And really what's happening here, the goal is hopes that this young superstar can be the best player on the floor. 4 games, to secure the title. So it begins with San Antonio Spurs. Knicks are going to be the underdogs. It's funny. I don't really have a best pick for myself. I kind of like the idea that the Knicks can be relevant again. And it's been a long time since they've been relevant. And there's nothing against, San Antonio, but I'd like to see the underdogs find a way to win this thing and go from there.
We talk about how you've got to be big, you've got to have size. Well, Jalen Brunson doesn't have that, but yet he continues to succeed. And one of my theories, and I wanted to run by you, like you take a guy like Paul George, he was probably a short guy at some point, and then he continued to grow, and then he blows up, right? Well, Jalen Brunson was probably short his whole life. And so no matter what level he's playing at, he's one of the smaller guys, and so he's got to find a way to utilize his skills. And in a sense, man, he must have had to work so hard to be able to find ways to be successful, probably even at the high school level, the AAU level, certainly in college at Villanova, and at the pro level, he was doubted every step of the way, and yet he continues to do that. It's an amazing story to me that he is where he is, given the fact that human beings have grown so much, and we're used to the 6'6", 6'7" dudes just dominating. Wemby 7'4". My gosh, the list goes on and on. So I'm just so impressed with him, and I'm wondering if you think that the fact that he was short and never did grow actually became an advantage, because if he was going to succeed, he needed to find ways that were different than just simply raw, natural athletic ability.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, and I looked at these finals, and, we know what the narrative is, but the Knicks are rested. They're going to play the San Antonio Spurs, who has a talent edge, I think, with their size and their ability. But the Knicks are playing for history here, and they're riding a historically dominant 11-game playoff winning streak after, sweeping both the Sixers and Cavs. And beating the Sixers really doesn't mean much because they weren't there in full strength. But there is a deep front court. They have size. Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, along with Mitch Robinson. I guess he's got a broken pinky. Hope that'll be okay. But I think that I like the Knicks here. And maybe it's just because, that's who I'm pulling for, because it's been a long time, 50 years, and let's get this done. So that's what I'm hoping happens. I know this is the Wemby era, and he carried the Spurs all year, and certainly he's a superstar for a long time coming. But the Knicks are the underdogs, and let's get this on, and let's see it happen right in front of us.
Do you think the shot distribution changes? Danny Ainge, PK's got the great quote. I don't remember exactly the situation you got it in. FGA's, baby.
It was the alumni game between Utah and BYU.
Okay, there was. FGA is the most important stat. Yeah. So he's being funny.
I didn't hear you.
But
Share that with me again.
He was joking. They used to play, BYU, Utah would play an alumni game, get guys come in the summer. And Ainge was there. I don't even remember if he was playing, but I was talking to him. He might have been. I can't remember. And he was just saying that, stats. We get so excited about stats, but the stat as a player he cared about most was FGAs.
Yeah.
Field goals attempted. That's what he wanted. So that was his.
Yep.
That was his joking way of saying he was going to bomb it.
Let him fly, baby.
And he was pretty good at it too.
So the Knicks, I just want to say the Knicks, Brunson takes in the playoffs during this big win streak, Brunson's taken 20 shots per game, and the next four guys are all at 10 or 11 shots a game. Given the Wemby, and is Brunson going to be taking 20 shots a game, or are these other guys going to get more shots, and then do they come through? Because they've been shooting at a much better clip than Brunson.
Yes. Well, I don't disagree with you there, but I'm kind of looking at this thing from the perspective of history could be made here, and they do have an 11-game playoff winning streak, and they didn't really beat anybody real good to get there, but the Cavs were competitive, the Sixers had issues, but when you could bring a deep front court and have size like Karl Anthony Towns and OG Anunoby and Mitch Robinson, it puts you in a situation where you do have length. And yes, are they going to be put in situations that maybe they've not been in before? But I think this New York team is, it's the biggest market in the world. They're searching for their first championship in over 50 years. They're running, as we mentioned before, 11-game winning streak, deep front court with the bigs. And they play suffocating defense. And what do we always say? Defense wins what? Championships. And so I'm going to ride that, and I'm going to follow that. And they do have a suffocating defense. They forced 21 turnovers and 41% team defense, which tells you that that's an important part of the Knicks and who they are and what they've done. They did win that They won the NBA Cup title in 2026. And they were able to slow Wemby down. I know that's not, where we are right now, but still, it's out there, and there's enough there to just get me to be persuaded that this is going to be an upset. And in the Knicks' mind, they don't think it's an upset, but it is an upset if they were to, hang on to that big front court and find ways to guard and suffocating defense. I think it was 21 turnovers is what they're forcing every game, and 41% team defense. So the Knicks are there. They've been there, and I don't know that the NBA Cup title means anything, but the bottom line is their whole goal has to be slowing Wemby down. And if they can do that, get Wemby in foul trouble, anything that they can do to have an advantage, which, a lot of people feel like Wemby is the advantage, but we'll see how it plays out. But those are my thoughts on that.
In the 2024-25 college basketball season, we knew that the Jazz were going to not be good and have potential for a high pick, right? They ended up taking 5th, Ace Bailey. So consequently, in order to be more versed on Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, because we knew that they were going to be going very high, I ended up watching a lot of Rutgers basketball. It fit well with the time difference, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the winter. I got nothing else to do, and so why not use it for work? So I ended up watching Rutgers basketball, probably 20 games, watching those two to get a feel for them.
Yeah.
And so, I saw Dylan Harper play a lot, and Ace Bailey for that matter. And now we're watching the Spurs go, and you see Dylan Harper. He's an emerging player. He's a very nice player, right? And I think he has a chance to be really good. But as I watch him, I was texting somebody with the Jazz about this the other night as I was watching, I think, and get your thought on it, is that when I compare Dylan Harper, who I'm very high on, and was the number 2 pick, I think Darren Peterson can be better. And there's, a decent chance, if not odds-on favorite, that the Jazz have that opportunity to take Darren Peterson. And we talked about, I'm covering the NCAA tournament in Portland. It is at least an hour after the Cougars lose, and Kevin Young has done all of his podium interviews. And he comes down the hall. There's a couple of the guys, a couple of the KSL guys and myself are waiting for him. And he stops, and he starts talking to us, and he says, I view shooting as the holy grail in basketball. And it just screamed at me. And I look at Darren Peterson, I look at Derek Harper, or Dylan Harper. I think Peterson is better. So if it comes down to that, I'm all for it. Compare those two players and be with the idea of shooting in Kevin Young's mind being the holy grail.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And that's the, whether it's in professional or collegiate basketball, teams who consistently win and teams who, have an advantage are the teams that, number one, have great coaches who can, first and foremost, get their guys knowing and understanding what their talent is and how they can help their teams. And when it comes down to it, you look at AJ and Darren Peterson, Caleb Wilson, these are all guys that can shoot. And as it was mentioned before, the Holy Grail. I think Peterson is the most talented. He's got a 5.25 wingspan. He's a shot maker. We've talked about that. He's averaging 20 a game and 38% from the three. Whether he can create shots at that size, it's still probably unknown. But he in my mind, they can't go wrong. They can't go wrong with Peterson. I just think he has such an upside in the fact that he is a shot maker, and that he shoots 38% from the three and 49% from the field goal. And, I'll keep going back, can he create shots? I think anybody at 6'11" or 7 foot, whatever, however tall he is, he changes the game. And in some ways, a lot like Wemby, in that you're a shot maker. You can create shots. It's hard to guard. I mean, when you're guarding a guy 6'11", 7 foot, who not only can shoot the ball from the perimeter and shoot the three, but has the ability to really have a presence defensively with that size. And I know the NBA is very different than the collegiate game, but having as many bigs as you can on the floor that can pass and shoot and defend, I think Peterson's the guy. He's a better fit with the Jazz, and I don't know that Boozer will become part of this and what will happen, but I like that, and we'll see how it plays out, and if there's trades involved. But if the Jazz can get Peterson at that second spot, if AJ is, he's the number one guy, I don't know how to play out. I think it's a great win. I think it's a great win for the Jazz.
Do you have any theory on why number 2 picks tend to be pretty disappointing? The shortage of everything. NBA titles, NBA finals, best player on the team, all-stars, Olympians, 20-point scores, whatever you want. We went over the list of the past 25, and it's past 25 years, the number 2 picks. It's pretty disappointing.
Man, I'm not sure I have an answer to that, but here's just a couple of thoughts. That those are the facts, and things can change and things can happen, and if it's that many years, there is, it tells you how good the number 1 picks are, and but I think that whether it's Peterson, AJ, Boozer, I think all of those players are going to have an impact no matter where they're picked. And but that is an interesting statistic that I've never even thought about or heard. And you got 3 franchise cornerstone guys, and I mean, maybe, I don't know, because I haven't talked to Austin or Danny about this, but in my mind, I think Darren Peterson may have, now he had injury troubles and there was maybe some psychology issues, but if he's healthy and he can do those things, there's a big difference between 7 foot and a 6'8" or a 6'7" AJ. And AJ, I think, is everybody's dream. I mean, he's just so talented, and we hear all the pundits and what they have to say. But I think Peterson might be the most talented if he can stay healthy. I mean, he's got big wingspan, he can make shots, and he can shoot the 3, which he stretches guys. And I've never seen him. I haven't watched enough film on him to know if he's breaking guys down, But in that league, there's a lot of bigs. And so it's not like you have to worry about a 6'7" guy that's going to zip by somebody. Everybody's 6'7", 6'9", 7 foot, 7'1". So I think right now going into this thing, that Peterson is the most talented because of those things. And I guess I don't know enough about him, and I haven't watched enough tape to know how creative he is. But we all watched his games, and I mean, he stretches the floor. He makes defenses really, they have to keep him honest. I mean, Peterson can do that, and a lot of people feel like he's the most talented guy in this draft, and maybe, as I said before, a better fit for the Jazz than AJ or Boozer or whomever.
I think he is the best fit. That doesn't necessarily mean you take him, though. You take the best player, and you go from there. And if you have to move guys, so be it. But there's no question if you just went on fit. I watched him a ton, and with the advent of these all-star games and televised games at the high school level, you get to see these kids, these real elite kids, well before they actually get to college, because they're available and the tape is available. And I'm thinking that there's no question he's pure. He's smooth, man. He just he has a way. And he's you see a smooth player, somebody who's always on balance and never looks awkward. That's this kid. And I think that one of the things that isn't really talked about is that his ability to distribute, particularly at the pro level, when you've got guys like Jaren Jackson, Market, and George. These guys, I can take them over to the arena right now, turn out the lights, and they shoot 50%. I mean, they are pure shooters. And so you got somebody who, in college, the teammates aren't as good. I think one of the things that's not talked about a lot with him is his ability to distribute, because he can break you down. And from the times I've seen him, he is a willing passer, and I think that's something to be excited about. Yeah,
I love that, being a willing passer, which tells you immediately already he's a good teammate and that he's coachable, and that whomever gets him is going to, is going to be lucky. Anybody gets these top 2 or 3 picks, it's going to make their program better and their organization better. So I agree with you, and I'm just going to stay with that. I think he's the best fit, Peterson, for the Jazz. And, and there's an argument can be made about AJ and this and that, and I think they're all both going to be really good pros. But in my mind, if I was picking, I like Peterson, and they can get him.
All right, there is Steve Cleveland. A reminder to join Scotty G and the coach Tim Lacombe Friday from 10 to 2 at the Larry H. Miller Summer Games in Cedar City. Celebrate 40 years of a Utah sports tradition. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Stephen Johnson covering the TCU Horned Frogs. The spring football tour continues. Stay with us. DJ PK, and we're joined now by Stephen Johnson, TCU beat writer for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Stephen, good morning.
Hey, how's it going, fellas?
Good. Hey, before we dive into some specific players here, you're talking to two guys who've been doing this show for almost 25 years. So we were around when Gary Patterson was going to the Fiesta Bowl and winning the Rose Bowl, and TCU, BYU, and Utah had a really good thing going in the Mountain West. They were great. And Sonny Dykes comes in and takes them to the college football championship game his first year. Now, you lose a lot of players. You got to rebuild. We get that. Couple of 9-4 seasons back-to-back here. What is the missing piece that might jump TCU into the conversation with Texas Tech, with Utah and BYU in the elite in the conference? Big picture, they're good. What are they missing that they're not great?
Well, they hope that new offensive coordinator Gordon Samuels ends up being kind of the missing piece. I think Sonny realized Sonny's been an air raid guy most of his career and has had a lot of success with it. But I think if you notice BYU, Utah, Texas Tech, even teams like Iowa State and Kansas State, I feel like those teams, the Big 12 is moving from that air raid, throw it all over the yard 50, 60 times a game to those five teams I mentioned are very physical teams on both sides of the ball. Yeah, they still run spread, but a lot of those teams weren't afraid to get under center. I still remember going to that BYU game last year, just how much more physical BYU was than TCU. So they hope this new offense philosophy, which is a little bit more pro-style, a little bit more multiple, will allow them to play a bit more physical. Their run game has struggled the last 2 years, so they got a new OC. Even though they lost Josh Hoover, they think they have a more athletic quarterback in Jaden Craig that can also maybe unlock certain dimensions of the offense. So they're hoping this new offensive scheme and also being in year 3 under Andy Avalos could kind of be what they need to take that next leap into the elite of the Big 12.
Yeah, you speak of Josh Hoover, and he was a mainstay there. And on the way out, it seemed like from a distance, and get your thought on this, that Sonny took some shots at him talking about the turnovers. And I believe he had 42 total turnovers, 79 touchdown passes, 42 turnovers. And that ASU game was in a particular abomination. It seemed like they had that game won, but he kept turning it over. So with that in mind, you spoke of the new quarterback coming in. Is it the case of sour grapes, or is Sonny glad that Hoover's gone?
I think two things could be true, maybe three things. They certainly wanted to keep him. I know financially they were competitive with Indiana and some of the other teams that wanted him. I think ultimately Josh left because, Kendall Briles left. A lot of his good friends, Eric McAllister, Colton Deary, some other guys also ended up leaving. And he had been here, I think, 4 years, so he had kind of seen everything Fort Worth had to offer. But I do think it was a shot, but I also think Sonny was telling the truth as well. I think turnovers were one of the biggest things. I forget what the stat says, but since Sonny's taken over, if they just win or they're even in the turnover battle, I think they have some crazy record like 26-4, 27-4, something like that. So typically speaking, when TCU doesn't turn the ball over or when they win the turnover battle, they win games. And that, I still think to this day, that's going to be Josh's biggest flaw. But like Cignetti says, he's never had a defense as good as he'll probably have as Indiana. He's never had a run game as good as Indiana is likely to have either. So I think there's some truth in the statement, but I also think it was some sour grapes as well.
If he had stayed, would he have had the best line ever? Noah McKinney, Witten Van Hoy's returning. They are being talked up. And back to your earlier point about being physical, can they just load up and run behind those guys?
I actually think so, ironically. I really like some of the additions they made. Noah McKinney was obviously a big one. They got Cade Bennett back for an extra year eligibility. Some of those, Ben Taylor Whitfield as well. Ryan Hughes is coming off an injury. Another guy that got out of the portal, he was all conference at FIU, was a Jaheim Buchanan. So they're deep, and you're seeing a lot of those highly regarded recruits Sonny landed, in like the 23 class, 24 class. Those old linemen, Witten Van Hoy, Killian Registi, I think I said his name right, and Wesley Harvey. Some other guys, they're finally ready to play now, and TCU is starting to look a little bit different on the offensive line. You're starting to see a little bit more 6'5", 6'6", even 6'7". So the body types are changing. So I do think Josh would have probably had his best O-line if he stayed here.
Don't know a lot about Jaden Craig other than a 3-year starter at Harvard, but the thing that gives me confidence is I believe Sonny could take whomever, basically, and mold him into a pretty good quarterback. I think we followed him at Cal, and we know what he was about, and he's a real good offensive mind, obviously. So from that perspective, what do you expect from Craig? And tell us about him, what he does well.
I kind of follow that same thinking as you. I think even whether it be Max Duggan, Josh Hoover, Chandler Morris can really stay healthy. The success he had at SMU, even going back to Louisiana Tech, I think Sonny, if he's known as a quarterback whisperer, I think he's earned that reputation just based off the work he's done, really all over the place. So I expect Craig will probably set some career-high numbers. I think one thing that he'll be able to showcase a little bit more than he wasn't able to at Harvard because of depth issues is just his mobility. I don't think his rushing stats are probably just going to jump off the page, but he's more mobile than maybe you might expect. He's a little bit bigger than Josh. I think he has similar arm talent, man. I really do. So I think the mobility, the fact he's going to be in the offense, that Samus really kind of thrives on making the game really, really easy for his quarterbacks. Fagnano at UConn was one of the most efficient passers in college football last year, and that's what they want to do this year. They don't necessarily need or want Craig to have to carry the offense, but I do think this scheme and this ability to kind of get him in space to use his legs will bring out the best of him. He has some NFL draft buzz, so he has NFL upside. I do believe that, and I definitely saw it after watching him go through the spring.
Quarterback depth can always be an issue, and I was looking at some of the guys who played in the version of a spring game. And Jack Dalton, wait a minute. No, we're so old that Andy Dalton's kid is playing college football? That's a shocker. How good is he?
Dalton, I don't think Andy's his dad, but for what I remember. But he was running with the threes, but when he got on the field, he was a 3-star recruit out of the Woodlands near Houston. He flashed some talent, man. He was a guy that really impressed Kendall Browse and Sonny when Browse was here. So I definitely think he closed the spring pretty strong. The second quarterback's going to be Adam Schobel, who's really raw but really talented, 6'4", maybe 6'5", can move, has really good arm talent. He just needs more polish. He played at like 4A or 3A here in Texas, so he's just kind of refining his skills. So TCU has good quarterback depth. Obviously, they hope it won't be tested, but it won't be like some of those other years where if Josh went down, they would be having to turn to, almost a walk-on or a true freshman. So I think TCU's in a good spot when it comes to his quarterback depth.
Receiver-wise, McAllister was a really, really good player, right? I think we all understand that. And when he was available, he was very nice. Now they don't have somebody, I think, that has the original or the stature of name value along those lines. But I'm assured that if it's a Sonny Dykes offense, they've got guys waiting in the wings, and whether it's a Jeremy Scott or a Terry Shelton, maybe it's those guys. Who knows? Could you tell us about what they have as far as receiver goes?
Well, the biggest addition, I guess, the return they got was Jordan Dwyer coming back. They picked him up last year from Idaho in the transfer portal. He's the second leading receiver with close to almost 800 yards. So if there's going to be a guy, it's going to be Jordan. Having him back, I just think is huge for just not only his experience. He's a proven guy. Did it at the FCS level, and then he did it at the Power 4 level. So he'll be wide receiver 1. I think they're counting on the outside receiver, that second outside spot, either Terry Shelton or Dozie Ezukanma. I think I pronounced it right.
Yeah.
They're betting on one of those two guys to kind of take a leap. And based on the spring, I think they're both capable. I would probably maybe lean more towards Shelton kind of having that starting role. But they might use those two guys to kind of replicate what Eric McAllister did. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if, say, Terry Shelton has like 500 yards and Dozie has 300 or 400. Because I think it's going to take a committee approach to replace Eric. And then finally, they got Ed Small coming back. Ed Small, before his injury, I thought was one of the top freshman slot receivers last year. And so he's another guy they can depend on. They really like their tight end room. So I think it will be a committee approach. I don't know if they'll have the Big 12's leading receiver next year, But there's plenty of talent. They just need some of those younger guys to kind of step up now.
Back to your point about being bigger and more physical, we have seen Utah and BYU both have success with tight ends. But tight ends, that's an all-purpose label. Like some guys are more run blockers, some guys are receivers and are really glorified slot guys. And some guys really, truly are combo guys. What do they have in the tight ends group for TCU?
Well, all the tight ends now, I think, have to – Gordon Samuels demands that they have to be willing to kind of put their hand in the dirt, and they have to be good inline blockers. Obviously, he wants a receiving threat, a receiver that can – a tight end that can stretch the field. But it's paramount receiver, tight end, that you have to be a plus in the blocking game. So I think all of the tight ends are having to get a little bit more physical. Kamorion Pimpton is probably the lead guy. Right now, he's 6'6", 6'7". I view him as I think his strengths are going to be in the red zone target, just getting up, going up for those jump balls. But he has a lot of talent, man. They were really banged up, honestly. Another guy I really like is Mason Peterson. He's another guy. I think he might be him and Lafayette Kawhi. I think I said his name right. I think they're more of those, I guess, more modern tight ends. That can really stretch the field. They're faster despite having, so much, despite their physicality and things like that. So they have a versatile tight end room. They're just hoping those guys can get healthy and will be able to go in fall camp.
Reading up on them defensively, said they have some gaps to fill in the secondary at linebacker. And going with linebacker, I know Elam's Caleb was really good as far as linebacker, and he was just a tackle machine. So how is that position going to be?
It's a big question mark. They do feel good about the development of Max Carroll. He's a Memphis guy just like me. So Max will step into Caleb Elam's role as kind of like the Mike Backer. Another super talented former 4-star recruit, was an athlete in high school, played every position. So he has like a receiver safety mindset at linebacker, which I think is going to allow him to really thrive against both the pass and the run. So if there's a breakout guy on that TCU defense, I would definitely say it's him. Outside of him, though, that room's going to be a big question mark. They're dependent on – it'll either be one of the handful of redshirt freshmen they have that, weren't ready to play last year, having to step up. They also brought in Mike Short from North Carolina, but he was a reserve at North Carolina. And they also have Michael Thiessen back, who was a transfer from Missouri State. So I would argue that second linebacker spot by Max Carroll, that's probably the biggest question mark on the defense for TCU.
TCU's defense a year ago, 14th in the conference, giving up 245 yards a game through the air. That is not good enough. Have they leaned heavily into the transfer portal to fix that? How is that going to work out?
Well, absolutely. They loaded up at the cornerback position. It was really strange because their safeties were so good last year, but their cornerbacks was kind of like the opposite story. So they do bring back Jamel Johnson, who I think will be preseason All-Big 12, maybe preseason All-American. Tied for the team lead in interceptions last year. I think he's an NFL guy just like Bud Clark was. And another guy, not a transfer, but a true sophomore, Gil Jackson at cornerback. He might have been the top performer in the spring. He looks like a dude. He looks like the type of corner you'll see in the SEC. 6'3", great frame, has that type of confident, bordering on cocky mindset that you want from your defensive back. I think he's another guy that could be a breakout. And they brought in two cornerbacks, Kalen Carroll from Central Michigan and Tion Parks from Colorado. Also bring back Vernon Glover as well. So they would like to think they'll be better on that side of the ball. They struggled, I think, in jump ball situations last year, and they struggled for some reason in third and long. They had one of the better defenses in terms of stop rate on first and second down. So they were really good at forcing those 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 8s, but they also really struggled to get off the field as well. So it was a really strange year watching the secondary last year, considering how good their safeties were.
I know they got a recruit coming in, quarterback, who's they're really high on, and the recruiting you spoke about, that they've been doing it. And I think that is reflective, and you can answer this much better than I could, in the reason why they gave Sonny an extension in April. Is that accurate?
I think so. I think Sonny, the recruiting as well, I think the fact he was able to kind of stabilize the ship, if you will, the last 2 years, I think that was big. If you're Mike Buddy, you're coming in. For the most part, TCU's athletic department is in a really strong place. And, at AD, you're defined by the hires and decisions you make. So I don't think Buddy wanted to really come in and make a major decision if he didn't have to. And the way Sonny, I think, closed the year last year and in 2024 was the right sign that, as he said after that bowl win over USC, TCU is a good football program. Now they're trying to figure out how to take that last step. It starts with recruiting. You're seeing that, I think, finally in the trenches more than anything, both on the defensive line and offensive line. The body types are changing. The physicality is changing. Now they just have to go and execute on the field and figure out, can they take that next step, especially with Sorsby. In my mind, Sorsby shouldn't be playing this year for Texas Tech, but that's another story.
Yeah, I think you'll be right.
Stephen, we appreciate the time and the info. Thanks for joining once again. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys.
There is Stephen Johnson covering TCU. When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.
Hey there, it's Wayfair here, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app, when you spot it, a brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's Room of Choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.